Welcome to Quilt As You Go, a popular method for making a big job more manageable. In today's class, you'll learn how to quilt as you go, block by block, row by row, or column by column. You'll discover how to work in small sections, and yet people will think it's a whole cloth quilt. You'll learn how to add sparkle to a quilt with Mylar embroidery from our friends at Purely Gates. And finally, you'll be introduced to some nifty tools that make Quilt As You Go fun, fast, and beautiful. You're in for a treat. Let's get started.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Quilt As You Go, a virtual presentation. I'm Ashley Jones, and I'll be your dime educator for the next 90 minutes. So this is a fun topic. So like Eileen said, Quilt As You Go is a great way to fit quilting and even embroidery into every single day because you only need a small block of time to work on it. So we've got to enjoy this presentation, but you guys wouldn't be here if it weren't for our friends at Just So Happy in North Carolina, Gastonia, I think, right, Pam?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks so much. It's great to see you again, Ashley.
Yeah, you too. And so just in case we do have some viewers out there that are unfamiliar with Just So Happy, please tell us a little bit about your store, what you have to offer, and where you're located. So Gastonia is outside of Charlotte, correct?
Correct. It is northwest of Charlotte on about a half hour or so. I opened up about 5 years ago, and we carry baby lock sewing and embroidery machines. And obviously, I carry a lot of dime products because I've always believed in everything that Deborah Jones and Eileen Roach has had to offer. Well before I started the store, I worked at Mary Jo's. Several of our customers in the viewing area will know what that is. And that store was, it was sewing and embroidery on steroids. So when that closed and I opened, we just kind of tried to carry on that little tradition.
Yeah. Well, I think you've done a great job, Pam, for sure. And I definitely agree with you. Everything that, Eileen has such an inventive mind. I love how she creates products for us in the embroidery field that make our life easier and take some of the challenges out of some of the things that we go through to get our beautiful embroidery. And Deborah Jones, her knowledge of all of the technical stuff and the stabilizers and the thread is just, it's unmatched. And it's, it's a crucial part too. It's not necessarily the most fun part, but it's definitely crucial to understand and know and have a good product to produce a good embroidery, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. There's no question about it.
Yeah, I love that. So, and I think your racks behind you look fantastic. I love all the colors. So, and so Pam, what about anything else that you have going on in the store? We were chatting before. You guys have something pretty major happening right now at Just So Happy.
Well, at Just So Happy, we actually have two separate suites, and one suite contains all of our embroidery, and the other suite has fabric plus sewing machines. We are going to combine the two. In suite 7, it is a major move to kind of really have like a sewing studio. So that's my vision, and it'll take a few weeks to get that all together. And as Tracy had said, my store manager, we couldn't have done it at a better time since it's like 100 degrees.
Well, I hope the air conditioning is able to keep up.
Really?
Sure. So, well, that sounds really fun. I tell you, there's nothing to me more exciting than, just sometimes just moving things around, rearranging. You see things in a different view, and it just seems so fresh and exciting and new. So I'm sure you guys will have that feeling once it's all settled and done, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can't wait to get it started.
Yeah. So if anybody's traveling to Charlotte, only 30 minutes away, I mean, go check out, see what they're up to, go and help them move something to the other suite, something. And so that's fantastic.
Look for embroidery thread.
Right. One spool of thread. I'll transfer that one to the new suite for you. So, and so Pam, other things in the industry are going on. This time of year is the convention time of year where we get to see new and exciting things that come out from the machine companies like Baby Lock. And so do you want to tell us a little bit about what I know it's not much, but what happens convention time, and what can everybody expect to see, and when?
Well, Baby Lock is coming out with a new sewing and embroidery machine. It's going to be fantastic. Will be at the end of August. So we have a couple pre-orders already in the store. So those customers will be getting those machines first,
Wow,
which could
fantastic.
even be before we go to convention.
Ooh.
Yes. So, but other than that, I am sworn to secrecy.
And right. Yep. And I know exactly what you mean. And so I do know a few things as well. And I will just say every single year, I think there's no way they can top what they did last year. And it always is so surprising because they do. And just like, Eileen at our company at Dime, I think those innovative minds, they're always just trying to think of ways to keep our hobby fun, interesting, keep us enjoying it.
And
And
easier.
easier, and adding things that we've requested. I do feel like sometimes you'll see something, you're like, wow, that's something I really wished that I had. And it's like they can hear my thoughts.
Yep.
So that's fantastic. So end of August, everybody should go to Just So Happy to see that new machine, right, Pam?
Absolutely.
That is fantastic. So the last thing I always like to ask, Pam, and you have a good one today, and that is if you have a favorite Dime product. So tell us about your favorite Dime product.
I do. I've always loved the snap hoops
Yes.
when they came out, but perfect for today. I absolutely love this.
The weightless quilter.
The weightless quilter.
Tabletop.
This is perfect for the Dime product, for absolutely what we're doing today.
Yes.
But this is huge because of the weight of that quilt on that embroidery arm. You don't have to support it anymore. Yeah. This is all you need.
Yeah. I think that's great.
Absolutely wonderful. So.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you. And like you said earlier too, Pam, it goes hand in hand with our Snap Hoop Monster, which if everybody, if you haven't seen it, if you're out there viewing, I'm going to show them today, but it, the weight of the quilt, even as Quilt As You Go, if you're making a small project, but even if you're putting your quilt blocks together after they've been quilted and it grows and it grows and it grows, sometimes whenever it gets large enough, you just need, like you need a friend or a husband to stand at the end of the table and hold it up. And the weightless quilter will take the place if your husband's not willing or your friend's not available, because she'd be willing if she was a quilter.
Absolutely.
So I love that, Pam. So, well, I wanted to say thank you so much for hosting. It's always a pleasure. I really always enjoy chatting with you, and your great group of fans and followers out there that we have with us today, Pam. So,
Ashley, it is always a pleasure to work with you. I've enjoyed it from the start years ago. So thank you, and thank everybody at Dime.
Absolutely. I sure will. Well, thank you so much for hosting, Pam, and we'll go ahead and get started with our presentation. Thank you. All right, guys, let me introduce you to one more person because you will see her over in the chat. I bet you're already seeing her over there if I know her, and that is our very own Laurie Albrecht. Hey, Laurie, how are you today?
Hey, Ashley, I'm doing really well. And we have such a great group over here in the chat already. And yes, I have been busy chatting with them. One of our followers, Marianne, and Cindy Clark, they're on there. So it's really fun to see friends. But they're all excited that Pam's store carries exquisite thread, because sometimes it's hard to find. So yeah, I told them to check out our website. But anyway, I'll be over here. I'll be answering questions. You know how much I love this event. Yeah. And so, yeah, and then I'll bring you questions at the break.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yes, everybody ask Laurie questions. I have to say, when I have quilting questions, I sometimes go to Laurie because it is really her jam. I love it, but I think she takes it to a new level of love for sure. So ask her anything quilting over there in the chat, and we'll answer some of those live throughout the presentation. So thank you so much, Laurie, for helping over there. I wouldn't be able to do both. And so if you're ready, I'll go ahead and get started.
All right.
All right. Thank you, guys. And so let's get started with our Quilt As You Go now that we've had an awesome introduction. So tell Laurie over there in the chat, are you new to Quilt As You Go, or have you done a Quilt As You Go project before? And so if you're new to it, when we're referring to Quilt As You Go, we're talking about a method of quilting where you are completing one block at a time. And then once that block is completed and you've got a stack of blocks, you can put them together with different joining techniques, and then bind it and you're ready to go. So as you join them together, they've already been quilted. So you wouldn't do that quilting after. So I really love this technique in a variety of, I love all quilting with your embroidery machine, but different projects warrant different types of quilting. And this is a really fun one. And you can do one block at a time and really fit quilting into every day, even if you only have a short amount of time. So what are the benefits of Quilt As You Go? Well, it's great for beginners because it's really easy just working with one small block. It's also great for adding embroidery embellishments because we're going to show you today how we create quilting to avoid or to go around your embroidery designs. And that's very easy to do when you're talking about one block that you are quilting, or a small Quilt As You Go project. Also, in that 100 and something heat that Pam was referring to, you don't have to work with a large quilt that sometimes is sitting in your lap and making you more hot than you already are. And so it's great to work in those small segments as well. And when you're done putting your blocks together, and then all you have to do is bind, your entire project is really done. And there's so many different things that you can do with Quilt As You Go. I mean, if you really any project that you want to join those blocks together and use it for your quilting, you certainly can. Here's some of the things that we've completed that are Quilt As You Go. You can see in a couple of these, there's a distinct border or sashing, it's called, between the blocks. And that's a very common thing that you'll see in Quilt As You Go. But you can also join your blocks without sashing. This particular one is joined with the wrong sides together, and you just snip the seams to give it kind of a raggy, fun look. This cute little baby quilt here. Here we have sashing that matches the background fabric. And so when you look at this particular jacket, it does not look like it's Quilt As You Go, but these blocks were just added to a larger piece of fabric and then the pattern cut out of that block. You can also do small projects as well for your Quilt As You Go. It doesn't have to be something big, but just working on those those individual blocks and then joining them together. Really fun. Here we've got one from Patricia Gates of Purely Gates Designs, if you're familiar with them, that we've put those words in the rows and joined together. I absolutely love that. I think that's a gorgeous idea for a quilt. And we're going to see more of her designs today too. But you can use those blocks to join together in pretty much any kind of project that you can think of. And there's a variety of different joining techniques that you're going to see today. And so this will be a lot of information, but remember, you can watch this presentation all throughout the weekend using your original link. You can watch it as many times as you want on the replay. Now, today's event, Quilt As You Go, is a collaboration between Dime and Patricia Gates of Purely Gates Design. So if you are familiar with Purely Gates Design, they are the Mylar embroidery design wizards. So they have lots of designs, but really they specialize in Mylar embroidery designs. And we've got some of their design collections we're going to share today because they're great for stitching on blocks and turning those blocks into a quilt with a Quilt As You Go method. So we're going to learn about piecing a block. Now, to do Quilt As You Go, remember you need a block. So we're going to talk about ways that you can create a block. We're also going to see lots of samples, and we've got some tips and tricks along the way. We've got some information on doing Mylar designs, but also products and tools to help make the process easier. So let's start with how this is going to work. So you'll be watching in that main viewing window, which you already should be. You'll be able to chat with Laurie over there to the right. So ask any questions that you have. You can purchase some of the items that we're talking about today. Pretty much everything I'm talking about is on special underneath the viewing window. And like I've already said, you can rewatch this presentation for the next 48 hours. Use your original link to get back to this page and just press the play, and it'll start playing, and you can fast forward, rewind, stop as many times as you need all weekend long. Now, those specially priced items, those are the little images underneath the video. And if you click the view product button, you can see a description of those items. And then you can also add it to your shopping cart if it looks like something you'd like to own or would be helpful to you. Once you've added items to your cart and you're ready to check out, click that checkout button. And this right here is very important. If you like savings, make sure you click that show order summary, because it will show the items in your cart and reveal a location for a discount code. Now, everything's on special for the event. We always hold special prices, have special prices in support of our host, and that today is Just So Happy. But also, we have a couple of discount codes to share. The first one is Sparkle Ship. If you spend over $150, enter Sparkle Ship, and you will get free shipping to any U.S. address. If you spend over $250, make sure you enter Sparkle Ship. But you want to also enter Sparkle 10. The Sparkle 10 will get you an additional 10% off of your entire purchase. Nothing is excluded. So make sure you take advantage of those codes as well. And the best savings of all, right, is something free. And we have the perfect block for you to get started with your Quilt As You Go method. And this block here is actually pieced in the hoop and quilted in the hoop as well. And so you can make this block on your embroidery machine and then use these methods that we're talking about today to do that Quilt As You Go. And I'll give you a little idea of what that looks like here in just a moment. So this design here is in the shopping cart area. Scroll all the way to the bottom, and then you will see it at the very bottom. Add it to your shopping cart, and even though it's $0, you must check out to receive your free design. So let me head over to my camera here and show you the stitched out versions and give you a couple of ideas on and kind of get you started on the Quilt As You Go. So here's our little block. This actually was pieced in the hoop. My embroidery machine pieced my log cabin together, and then I quilted it while it was still in the hoop by putting the batting and the backing fabric underneath the hoop after it was pieced. Now, you can also piece on the batting and then just put your backing on after that. But you can see I have backing fabric, quilted, pieced, all one block completely finished. And actually, I have two of those. And of course, I made 4, but you can make as many as you want to make a project that you like. So we're going to talk about ways that you can join these blocks. So you have one completed block here. You can stitch on the seam and then cover the back seam, which we're going to talk about. You can join these with a piece of sashing if you want. And I'm going to show you some of those examples here in just a second. You can also stitch them on what we call a quilt cracker. Notice here that I do not have any backing fabric on. And whenever I stitch my blocks together and I open up that seam, I could always then join it to a backing piece of fabric by stitching in the ditch, or, you know, another method that you want to join to the back. So Quilt As You Go is working with one finished block at a time, or making one block that you'll add a large backing to. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, this block was pieced in the hoop, and that was created from Dime's software called My Block Piecer. My Block Piecer will generate a stitch file so that you can piece any block in the hoop if it doesn't have Y seams, because you have to stitch and flip. The quilting that you see on your free block here was created with My Quilt Embellisher software program. My Quilt Embellisher can create custom quilting designs for any scenario, and we're going to see both of those in action today. But let me show you some other examples while I'm here. So here is an example of joining blocks with the sashing, and you can see that this sashing is a contrasting color, so it kind of gives a window pane effect with joining my blocks together, which depending on the project, sometimes this is my choice. Now, take a look at the back. So here we've got the white sashing, so you could see it, but certainly you could match these up as well. And you can see that we've got a really busy printed fabric, and it really conceals our stitches there, because this particular design was actually quilted, and even the applique was done through all 3 layers of the fabric. So that is our stipple technique. We've got lots of stipple collections. Check those out below the presentation. If you want a Quilt As You Go project and you want all of the instructions step by step, these are a great place to get started. Any of these collections will give you the instructions for making the block, and it also gives you the instructions for doing the sashing, but I am going to show you how that works a little bit later. Now, I know that this sashing is not something that everybody loves, so let me give you a little tip here. Even if your project calls for sashing, take a look at this one. This is like a bed runner size, so I've just got it folded so we can kind of see. But the sashing on this particular quilt, I made sure that it was matching the background fabric of our blocks. And notice that even though this is sashed together, it's sashed together in rows, you can't tell because we matched the fabric to the backing fabric. So if you don't like this look, a really easy way to disguise it, if you still are using the sashing method, is to use the fabric that matches your background fabric. But these are actually quilted in rows. So not only can you do a block at a time, but you can do a row at a time if you'd like. Okay, so now here's another example of joining blocks. So this cute little yoga mat carrier here was actually made by Laurie over in the you guys in the chat. And so these blocks were all is a single piece of fabric quilted in the hoop on a cracker, so it doesn't have the backing, and then she joined those together with no sashing. You could see that just like you would join your blocks together, but the back is all the lining of the bag, so it's completely covered. So this would be a really good example of stitching just on your batting, stabilizer, and your fabric on the top, and then adding a lining or the backing to that project. Okay, and so here's another example. I love this for Quilt As You Go. This is another one of those fun stipple collections here. But these blocks, you can see that I turned into this tote bag. So those Quilt As You Go blocks, you could stitch together. You could make a full quilt like it shows here and gives you instructions for. But those blocks can be incorporated into other projects as well. It doesn't even have to be a quilt. And if you want to start with smaller, this is a really fun example here. This is a placemat size where the blocks, again, were joined with that sashing. Now, in this case, that decorative sashing really adds a pop in between that white fabric. So, and even though it's that, what I call window pane kind of look, it still, I think, is gorgeous. And this is another one of those stipple collections. So if you like that, make sure you take advantage of that below the presentation. And then take a look at this. Say you've got a bunch of blocks that you want to join, but you have commitment issues. That's me. And so take a look at this. So I've got a block, and each of these letters, these are the Purely Gates design collection with the monograms, and I just stitched SEW, and I like to hang this on my door, and I just use these clips. So I've got one finished block, and then I have these clips that join them together, and then whenever I'm not using this, then these could be used for maybe something else, and I didn't even stitch them together. So if you've got commitment issues like me, you can use a fun little joining technique like this, or even binding ribbon stitched together as well. So, and then here's some other smaller projects. So this is one Quilt As You Go block, and you can see that I did the embroidery and I quilted around it. This cute little one here in the center, this was pieced in the hoop. And then the quilting design, that's actually the utensils, comes from this same Purely Gates collection here, which is the chefs, which I love. So that's a fun collection. And notice on the back here, that's one of the ones where I added a large piece of fabric, and my stitching is actually where I've joined my blocks. And you can't even see that because of the same color thread and fabric, but that's a fun little idea. Just taking individual blocks, turning them into a little trivet or some sort of hanging is a fun way to do those blocks. And then even this cute little casserole carrier. So each of these blocks here, I pieced in the hoop and then I joined them together. Just like you would a bag, I seamed them right sides together, and then I put my top layer and my bottom layer to make my little casserole carrier here. So isn't that cute? And all that quilting was created in my quilt embellisher, which we're going to see. So I pieced it with my block piecer, I left it in the hoop, and then I was able to quilt it all in one fell swoop. So we're going to see that throughout the presentation. So before we can quilt as you go, we need a block, right? So we're going to be talking about how to do that. Now, your free block, that cute little log cabin, if you have never done piecing in the hoop, there's two different stabilizers that we use that I love. The first one is Piece and Stitch. This is a soft tearaway stabilizer. You can tear it away from your block if you want, or you can leave it in. When you wash it, it just gets softer and softer. So it's a perfect stabilizer for piecing. If you want something a little more permanent, we also like to use our light no-show. This is a very light cutaway stabilizer. It doesn't add a lot of bulk to your block, but it's going to remain in there forever. Just like if you were doing foundation piecing, like on muslin, a lot of times we'll do that. So those are both available. So if you don't have a stabilizer that will work for your free block, make sure you pick it up while it's on special here today. And then bundles. Bundles are a great way to save. Anytime we bundle items together, you'll get special savings, even more so than the specially priced items. So make sure you check out those. Just check a look at what's in them so you'll know whenever you're ready. So now let's start by making a block. So I'm going to be using my block piecer to show you how you can generate a file to piece a block in the hoop, but you don't have to do this. I'm also going to show you how to do this process on a block that was already pieced on my sewing machine, but I'm also going to show you how to create a quilting design in my quilt embellisher. So this is the first type of block I'm going to show, is how you can piece it in the hoop and then quilt it to have one finished quilt as you go block. And then we'll see more details about these software a little bit later and how they can help us with our quilt as you go. So let me head over to my software and show you how to create a cute little snowball block. The snowball block that I had the letters on, that we'll do that one. That's a really good one. Okay, so to start, if you want to piece a block in the hoop, My Block Piecer is the program that you want to own to be able to generate these files. The first thing you do is from the block library, you're going to select a block that you want to piece in the hoop. We have tons of different blocks, and even each section, there's a long scroll list. There's well over, I think, 1,600 blocks built in here. And so you're going to first choose the block that you want. And I'm going to work with this snowball block here. And you add it to your workspace. And then the second step is to set the size that you want this block to be. So if you want it to be, I mean, it can be tiny. Say you want a 2-inch finished block, you can do a 2-inch finished block. Put 4 of them together for a 4 patch. That is a 4-inch finished block. You could make this 6 inches if you want, 8 inches, whatever it is that you want. I'm going to go with 8 inches because I'm going to put a design in the center there. Now, to make this a block that we piece in the hoop, all we have to do is from our My Block Piecer, choose our workflow option. Make sure you're in a hoop that is large enough to accommodate our 8x8 block here. And so I was just looking for my blocks or my hoop size, and you can see all that white space represents my hoop. And so that's big enough. And then I'm going to click the auto build, and it will generate the file. I'm going to say sort numbers. So put those in the order that I want to piece them, or I need to piece them. And look what happens when I click the preview. So this is a bunch of run stitches. If you've ever pieced in the hoop, this will piece the block together, and you'll do it based on number. So it's like stitch by number. So that generates the file. I'm going to click the save. I'm just going to put this on my desktop here so that we can easily get back to it. So this is my my snowball. And so I'll just give it the name and click my file type. So you want to save it to your embroidery machine format. So I'm going to save that for my Baby Lock Solaris, and then click save. Now we do have machine file formats for any brand of embroidery machine, even though I use Baby Lock, and that's what Just So Happy has. If you happen to have another machine brand, we also saved those formats as well. So I'm going to click save, and then it opens up exactly what it saved for me. So here's my design file, and here is a PDF instructions, and then I've got my saved artwork file if I need to get back to it. But take a look at the PDF instructions. The instructions tell you exactly how to create this block. So if I scroll down, here's our stitch file, what it's going to look like. And look at these instructions. Whoop, I zoomed in too much. Hope nobody's getting seasick out there. And so look what it tells you. So step number 1 is the placement stitch. Step number 2, you're going to put your fabric number 1 right sides up, and it's going to tack it down. Then you're going to put fabric piece number 2. You're going to put that one right sides together. See what it says there? Right sides together. And it stitches the seam, and then you will fold that out and it will tack it down. And then you'll go through those same steps for piece number 3, 4, and 5, and you will have a completed finished block that is pieced in the hoop. Okay, so now you could stop right there, take that block out, and then piece it together if you want. But if you want to add quilting that perfectly matches this block, let me show you how I would do that. So I'm going to start a new workspace. Well, and I could do it. Let's do it right on top of this so we can actually see it happening. I'm going to go back. I'm going to choose that same snowball block. And you can see how it puts it right on top of it. I need to make sure it's the same size as my other one. So 8 inches, which it is. And then I can add quilting. So I'm going to select the center portion, and let's turn that into stippling. And I'm going to make that darker so that you guys can see it. So there's the quilting for that. If I select these pieces, I can add all kinds of just decorative motifs. I can increase the spacing to make it the quilting a little bit further apart if you like it to be a little bit more open. Let's just do a variety. I probably would not do a different quilting design in every one of my pieces, but I just want to show you the variety of what you can do. So you can contour, you got all these different decorative ones, and look at this long list. It's not just the one I selected. You've got all kinds of choices for decorative stitching, you know, for your block pieces. You can even echo a shape. So like here is a circle, and you can see it echoed that circle shape as well. So that's how you can create the quilting. And now let's watch this stitch out. Because we brought in our stitch file, it's first going to piece my block together, and then it's going to do my quilting. So if I piece this on my stabilizer, and if I put batting and backing underneath my hoop and then do the quilting, it's going to quilt those layers together. So isn't that really cool? Okay, so I'm going to do my undo key here, and let's go back to just where it's the shape of the block, because I want to show you how you can create quilting to avoid an embroidery design. So let me bring in my letter here. So this is my Purely Gates design, and I'm going to do a right mouse click, not right mouse click, sorry. I'm going to select both of those and just use my centering tools to make sure I'm aligned. And now I want to create quilting that goes around this. If I choose my stippling, you can see that it's going to go all over my design, and that is not what I want. Okay, so I'm going to select my design, do a right mouse click under utility, create an outline. You can set the distance. I'm going to do just say a 0.12 there, and we can see that line that it's going to create, and I click OK. If I select that line and select the background block and then choose my combine option, look how it does kind of this cookie cutter effect. So now whenever I add the quilting, like our stippling there, you can see that it is avoiding my embroidery design. So isn't that cool? And then of course we can add, different designs in our corner pieces as well. So let me choose something here, and then we'll watch that slow redraw. I'm going to do the circle, but for the circle, watch this. So I'm going to, instead of 4 separate circles in my corner, I'm going to combine them. And now my quilting looks like a concentric circle. I'm going to make it a little more open. And you can see it looks like it just goes around and then skips over those areas. So, but not only stippling, but you can fill this with any kind of quilting that we have here built in. Wow, that's really tight. So we can open that up a little bit just like that. But honestly, I kind of like the stippling, don't you? And so I think it adds a really cool effect. Let's try one more. I'm going to use like this fisheye here, and then let's make that a little bit less dense. So how cool, right? And so when you take this design and put it on your embroidery machine, you will piece the block in the hoop, and then the quilting and the embroidery will happen. Now, what I would recommend here is the embroidery happening before the quilting so that you don't embroider through all your layers. So I might take my embroidery design here, move it in my sequence view so that it stitches after my block is pieced. Okay, and then it will stitch my design. And then I can put my batting and my backing under my hoop, and it's going to quilt my design through all 3 layers so that my embroidery won't all be through my batting and backing as well. So what do you guys think? Isn't that cool? So that is using my block piecer and my quilt embellisher together. And so we're almost ready for a Q&A. And so if you haven't done piecing in the hoop, let me head under my camera and show you that right before we go to break. So if you've got a question, make sure you're asking Laurie over there in the chat. Okay. So this block right here, for example, this elongated diamond, because you can change the size where it's not proportionately. This is how we would piece this in the hoop. We've got our pieces already cut. You can save a cut file if you want so that you can pre-cut your pieces. I would definitely recommend laying your block out in this manner so that you don't accidentally have your block pieces reversed, because then that doesn't fit our layout. Okay, so I like to position those as they should be. You would stitch this in the hoop, and it's just this block here that stitches. Now I've already taken it out of the hoop. You would put piece number 1 down, and then it would tack it down. And then you're going to put piece number 2 right sides together, and it will stitch the seam just like that. And then you will fold that out, and then it will tack that down. Okay. And then you'll put piece number 3 right here. And notice my dog ears match up perfectly. And then it will stitch after that tack down, and you do that seam, you'll fold that one out, and then you'll place your next 2 pieces. It'll stitch the seam, you'll flip that out. Well, I went wrong. That was number 5, but it'll stitch the seam right sides together, and you'll fold that out until you've got a finished block. Okay. And then now this is still in the hoop. I just had to take it out of the hoop because I didn't have all these hoops. And then you could put your batting and your backing. And so that when you quilt through this, you've got that one finished block like we saw on our example a little bit earlier. So how cool is that, right? Okay, so I think this is a really good place to take a break. So Laurie, how's it going over there in the chat?
Well, we have so many wonderful chatters today, which is great.
Chatters.
So Cynthia has a really great question that she just typed in. Do the instructions tell you what size the fabric pieces should be?
For my block piecer, it does not. But what you can do, you can print a template, and you can just print it on regular printer paper, and then you'll be able to see the sizes. A lot of times too, Laurie, what I'll do is I don't always pre-cut my pieces. I will just take a big piece of fabric that will cover, and then once it stitches and I flip it back, I can trim away the excess. You don't have to pre-cut your pieces of fabric if you want to, but you can print a template. You can also save a cut file and have your digital cutter cut out your block pieces if you want.
Right.
Good question.
And what about the seam allowances?
Yeah, so the seam allowance is all built into the file. It's set at 1/4 inch, but you can certainly adjust that. Usually I adjust it when I'm making a really tiny block. So I've done some blocks that are like 1-inch finished blocks. And for those type of blocks, I usually will make my seam allowance a lot less than 1/4 inch, just because, you know, it's such a tiny block.
Right. Okay, so what kind of stabilizer were you using when you were making a quilt cracker?
So I usually select my stabilizer based on what the project is going to be. So I would use for the quilt cracker, I really like to use the no-show stabilizer. But you certainly could also make a quilt cracker with the piece and stitch, which is a tearaway. It would just stay in your block, and you don't have to rip it out. It's going to get softer as you wash it. So really either one of those would work. Most often when I'm just doing the cracker, I will put the stabilizer in the hoop, and then I'll put my batting on top, and then I'll piece my block right through my batting. So then you almost get like stitch in the ditch kind of effect.
Right. Okay. Well, I think that's pretty much all the questions that I have for now.
Okay.
I know you have a lot more to do,
I
so
do.
yeah.
I do. Well, thank you so much, Laurie. We'll get back in about 30 more minutes and another Q&A. So great questions, everybody. Okay, so if you do own Dime software, or if you are new and want to make sure that you get the maximum amount out of your Dime software, so here's a few options for learning it. So first and foremost, I recommend this to everybody. And two of our viewers that Laurie mentioned earlier, Cindy and Marianne, I know they can attest to this. Join this group, because our education team is in this Facebook group, and they will answer your questions. But you also have thousands of knowledgeable users that will answer your questions. And some of these knowledgeable users are based all over the world. So when you're working on your project in the middle of the night, there actually may be someone that still is available to answer your questions. So join this group, Dime Inspiration Software Users. I cannot say enough. This is the best place to get help. Ask a specific question about how to do something, and you'll get an answer. Also, tell us what software you're working with when you ask the question, so we'll know exactly how to answer you. Also, I do a software success on the first and the third Tuesday of every month, so you can join me to learn about Dime software. I go through every piece of software and I rotate them around, so no matter which piece that you have, I'll get to that piece of software. And also, even if you don't own the software that I'm using, come visit me, come watch what I'm showing, because some of the features are the same, and it'll actually just help you learn to use your software even better. We also have private tutoring sessions that you can purchase. Laurie is one of our teachers of those lessons. She is fantastic with our quilting, but we also have Karen that teaches those lessons. So sign up, purchase a 30-minute session for $30, and you will get a private tutoring session one-on-one. It is hand-holding at its best. So, but now, hey, lucky for you guys, if you're buying a software from any of our Dime virtual events, we always include a free lesson for you to get started, to help you be successful with your software. And that is also the case today. So My Quilt Embellisher, if you already own My Block Piecer and you've really been had your eye on My Quilt Embellisher, it's a good time to get it. It comes with 8 PDF tutorials and also a private tutoring session. And also our My Block Piecer. If you have embellisher and you really want to get piecing those blocks in the hoop, then check out this special with My Block Piecer. Now, both of those packages are already over that $250, so you will get 10% off of this amount. So make sure that you enter your discount code. So that's a really great special. So okay, so also if you don't have either and you want both My Quilt Embellisher and My Block Piecer to do what I showed today, we have those bundled together with 2 lessons, one for each, and all of the PDF tutorials that we have for both of those lessons, all in one package together. And that is a smoking deal, $699.99. You saw the price for those bundles individually, which this is already less, plus you will get 10% off of that as well. So make sure that you take advantage of these prices while they're on special. Now, I am really surprised that in Laurie's chat, somebody didn't ask about what am I going to do if my block is 12 by 12 and bigger than my hoop? Well, I want to share that with you because it is a common scenario. And in this instance here, I'm going to show you how to quilt one block if this is a block that you have pieced on your sewing machine. Okay. And then I'll show you how this design was created as well. Okay, so let me head over to my camera here and I'll show you exactly how I did this. So here I've got one quilt block and I have my batting and my backing already layered. So then I would be creating this one block quilt as you go. Okay, so I've got this one block. This block I actually pieced on my sewing machine. You can see it was not done in the hoop. So these methods that we're talking about today, you really can make a block however you want. You just need a block to start. Okay, now for this one, I was going to use this design that I used on this block. So you can see this design quilts this 12 by 12 block, and we don't have a 12 by 12 hoop. We don't have a hoop that's 12 inches wide. I have a really big hoop on my machine, but not 12 inches wide. Okay, so here's what I recommend for that. When you are choosing, because there's lots of designs out there for purchase that you can select, or if you're creating a design, create a design that's easy to separate in halves. This particular design, you can see that I've got it printed on a template here, and I have it stuck to my block. This is a design that I could just mirror image after stitching only half of it and then move my hoop to stitch the other half. So this is a 12 by 12 block, so you do need a hoop that's at least 12 inches long, but if you did not, you could just do one at a time. So a 6 by 6, 6 by 6, 6 by 6, and a 6 by 6. So, and I'll talk about the hooping and lining everything up as well. So this is a printed template of my design. I printed this on Dime's print and stick target paper, and so it will stick to my block while I'm doing my hooping to make sure it's going to stay in place. Okay, so now I've got my snap hoop monster here. You heard Pam talk about how much she loves our magnetic hoops, and I definitely agree with her there. It is a metal base, and the top is a magnet so that it will hold your quilt sandwich between. You can also use it for other fabrics as well. Okay, so I'm going to place this down on my work surface, and I'm actually going to turn this way so we can see the whole hoop under my camera. And I just have these little stickers designating the center of my hoop, and I like to use my PAL 3 light. PAL 3 is a laser light that will illuminate the center of your hoop. So you can see that it's a crosshair light, and I can just move my hoop and line up those marks. And now I know that this is illuminating the center of my sewing field. So now we've got our template in place. All I have to do, and I'm going to turn around this way. A lot of times whenever I'm embroidering, I like to have the excess hanging over the attachment of the hoop. It just keeps it out of the sewing field. But do you see that crosshair that's printed? I can line that up with my light. And so now I know I've got this in the center of my hoop. And then now when I place my magnetic top frame here, then I can just lower that into position. Now, very important tip here. You want to make sure that the metal base and the magnet are lined up. Okay. And when we're working with a quilt sandwich, you can't see through it to make sure it's perfectly lined up. So let me give you another tip. So Dime always has tools to make the process easier. So these are called our hoop setters, and they actually fit right in underneath the base of the hoop. So now you can see that this is raised, but that's okay. I can get this all centered just like that. And now with my magnetic top frame, I can get that right into position next to those hoop setters. And so now when I lower my frame, it is in the exact position lined up with my base all in one fell swoop. So, and then once you're ready to go to the machine, you'll just leave these on your hooping table. Okay. So these just stay behind. They're just for aligning the hoop. Okay. So now we would head to our embroidery machine and then quilt this part of our block. And now I've got all this extra batting and backing because you can see that I need something for my hoop to grab onto. Okay. So now once you've got this half quilted, then you would lift your magnetic top frame. And now we will go to the other side. So, and then of course we don't want to stitch through this. So we would already have this off. Okay, and this would be quilted, and then we're ready to go to the second half. So I would use the same template, and I can just rotate it around because our design is the same. You just need to make sure you mirror your design or rotate it around. And I've got the center of my block already marked because I folded my block in half, so I know where that center mark is. And then I can just place my template, and this center mark of my design, that's where I'm going to position my needle to make sure the design is lined up. And I can do the same thing here. So I can position this over. You could have your hoop setters in place if you find those helpful. Put your magnetic top frame into position and get your quilt block in the hoop. And then you would align your design here with the that target paper, and then make sure that you center your needle over that to get that all centered and straight. Now, right now, this is actually off center from my center of my hoop, which is perfectly fine. I would just move my needle. The important thing is making sure you're square in the hoop. So the PAL light can help with that as well. You can see how I'm lining it up on my pieced block. It's a great way to make sure that you are square in the hoop when you're hooping too. So double check that with that PAL 3. So, but that's how you can quilt a 12 by 12 block. And then this is quilted through the batting and the backing. So I've got one block that's ready to be joined to another block. So really great way to make a block. And now let me show you how I created that design in the software. And then in just a minute, we're going to be doing joining techniques. So that's coming up here in a second. Okay, for that 12 by 12 design, and here's another tip. If you want to design on the top of an image, you can bring in an image of your block. So I took a photograph of that block and saved it under my images. Let's see here where my quilt blocks are. So you can see I got a lot of blocks. Hopefully I've got that saved in here somewhere. And bring in that image of your block. So where are my, oh, it's under my backdrops. I'm losing my mind here. So images, backdrops, there we go. My backdrops and my quilt blocks. So I took a photograph. You can do this with your phone if you want, or if you've got a camera, but just take a picture of your block itself and then get that picture to your computer, and then you just choose file and load backdrop. And now you can actually design right on an image of your block. Okay. The first step is to make sure you define the scale. That is telling us the exact size of our block. So I'm just going to go from edge to edge here. So this block is 12-inch finished. So that actually is 12.5 from raw edge to raw edge. And then I click OK. And you can see that it adjusts the size of my picture. So now it is to scale. Okay, I'm going to zoom back in and let's lighten up the background here so that when we're putting our quilt design on top, we can really see what it looks like. Now for this one, instead of using the quilting fills, I'm going to use a quilt embellishment. Now take a look as I scroll down through here. These quilt embellishments Each category, there's a square, a rectangle, a triangle, and a circle design so that you've got coordinating designs that you can use on your block. So, isn't that cool? And these can be used to quilt, blocks of any shape, but we've got these ones that match one another here to give you a good variety of designs that can match up to your block. Now, for my 12 by 12, I specifically chose a design that I knew was going to be easy to separate, and this is the one I selected under the leaf 3. I select that design and I can resize this as large as I need to. So I know that I've got a 12-inch finished block. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of breathing room, and I'm going to make this an 11.5-inch design size so that I've got the right size, not width, sorry, for the height. I almost made a boo-boo. So 11.5 inches, there we go. And so I can just slide this over. And now if I want to see what it's going to look like as a whole, I could, of course, make a copy, paste it, mirror image it, and then slide that over. But I only need 1/2 of this. So I'm only going to save just 1/2, whichever half you want. Choose File and Save As. And I can actually click right here where it says Selection Only. The selection only means it's only going to save what I have selected, which is half of this. So save it to your file format, get your quilt sandwich ready with your block, head over to your machine, and then get your block quilted. So isn't that cool? What do you guys think? That's a great way to do a 12 by 12 block. Having that at your disposal means that you really can do any size block anytime with your embroidery machine. Now, I printed on that print and stick Target paper, so I wanted to mention that. It is in the shopping cart. It is a printable template paper, feeds in your inkjet or laser printer, and it is adhesive. It does have a release paper until you print and peel it off, but it's great for printing your embroidery designs actual size for placement. I also use the PAL 3 for lining up my block in my hoop. That's another great tool from Dime that's really handy. And I was also using my Snap Hoop Monster. So if you don't have a Snap Hoop Monster magnetic hoop, I definitely recommend getting one at the event here. It's a great price, and you'll get additional savings if you reach those thresholds. So for your hoops, make sure you choose the hoop that matches your machine brand and model. So click the View Product button under the brand of your embroidery machine. From the drop down list, select the size that you want. Don't just click Add to Cart, because it will add the very first hoop in that list, and it may not be the size, or it may not even fit your machine. So make sure you choose the size you want, and make sure you choose the one that has your machine model listed out beside it. And don't forget to use those discount codes. If you reach those thresholds, you want to make sure that you've got additional savings. So use those codes. And then I also use the hoop setters. You saw those went under the corner of the hoops to make sure that it was perfectly aligned, the magnet and the metal. That's how you get the best connection. You want to make sure your magnet is 100% over and not overhanging the metal base. So the hoop setters are really a tool to make that much easier. In fact, we've got a little short video here that shows additional information. So let's take a look at the hoop setter video.
Hoop setters feature a channel that fits snugly under Snap Hoop Monster's metal frame. The 90-degree angle mimics the corners of most Snap Hoop Monsters. Hoop setters' barrier walls guide the magnetic top frame into position during the hooping process. On large hoops, place the hoop setters on the corners closest to the attachment, with the barrier walls outside of the metal frame. On small hoops, place the hoop setters on the corners opposite the attachment. Place the fabric stabilizer combo or quilt sandwich over the metal frame. You can see the hoop setters are lifting the fabric, making the corners visible. Place the top magnetic frame perpendicular to the attachment. Position it between the hoop setters. Gently release the top frame. The top and bottom are now aligned.
How easy was that, right? And so the next thing I want to share with you before we go to our break is the Monster Block Maker. So now we've talked about hooping our quilt sandwich. We've also talked about piecing the block in the hoop and adding quilting. If you are quilting through your 3 layers and you really want to save batting and backing, the Monster Block Maker is a tool that will allow you to quilt 1 block at a time, but it will save so much batting and backing because, we have to fill our hoop with all of that extra fabric. And this is a really great tool to save that. It's called the Monster Block Maker. You do require the 8x8 hoop because the template you'll see in the video fits this hoop frame exactly. You can use this on a multi-needle embroidery machine like the Baby Lock 10 needle, 6 needle, and even the tubular single needle. And you can also use it on your single needle machine, but it saves a ton of fabric and batting. Look at the difference here. So when I use the Monster Block Maker for a 6x6 block, which I needed my 8x8 hoop to do because 6-inch block means 6.5 inches. It wouldn't fit in my 6x6 hoop. Look at the savings of the extra fabric and the batting that I had to put around for it to be able to fit in my hoop. So I've got a really great video here that talks about how to use the Monster Block Maker, and it's from the creator of the Monster Block Maker. She was a collaborator with Dime in creating this product, and that is PJ Wong. So let's hear from PJ Wong on how to use the Monster Block Maker.
Hi all, it's PJ, and I'm going to talk to you about the Monster Block Maker. The Monster Block Maker is designed to work with the Snap Hoop Monster, the single and the multi-needle, and also the sticky hoop for single needles. The Monster Block Maker is really a set of jigs, which is what these little guys are, to help you hold your quilt blocks when you do quilting in the hoop. It comes with 4 different sizes from 5 to 8-inch square. You get the jigs, the double stick tape, and the instructions. All that comes in the package. The Monster Block Maker will save you time and money, and best of all, it keeps the batting out of the seams when you do Quilt As You Go blocks. Let me show you how this works. Use the double stick tape to attach the jig to the metal frame, and then the double stick tape also goes around the hole on both sides, the back and the front. The back and the front blocks are cut 1 inch larger than the size of the block that you're making. This is a 6-inch jig, so these are 7-inch blocks. And then my batting is cut just slightly smaller than the 6-inch. It basically needs to sit inside of that hole. This is what keeps the batting out of the seam. Set the jig on top of your back block, that's face down. The batting is going to go in, and it sits inside of that hole, and then your front block goes down. And I just press from the center to the outside and press that into the tape. The tape is really what's holding your block into place, but this is a great way to save time and save money. This is only 1 inch larger than the actual finished block size. I'm going to go stitch that block so you can see what it looks like when it's stitched. Here's our block all stitched. If you already had a pieced block, you could just simply sit the jig on top of it and position it within that hole and stick it to that tape. And then you could do your stippling or your embroidery design, whatever it is that you wanted to do. Here's a way that you can use the jig with a pre-pieced block. Any block that's got a diagonal piecing works really well for this because you can use your corners to line this up. So you would set this up just like you would before with a standard non-pieced block. I'm going to put the jig over the top, place my batting inside. And when I go to place my top block, I'm just going to gently fold this back, and I'm just looking to make sure that my seam is intersecting with that corner. And then down here again. And then same as before, I would just gently press that into the sticky tape and then do your stitching, and away you go. That's a very quick introduction to the Monster Block Maker.
So that product, again, created by PJ Wong. So she's actually giving you a PDF lesson and instructions for making those blocks. But not only the blocks, but you can turn those into projects. She also has a really cool invisible sashing technique, which I'm actually going to show you a little snippet of. But she gives you instructions in that too. So either our stipple collections or like the Monster Block Maker, you will get written instructions for doing all of what we're showing you today as well. But certainly you can rewatch this video as many times as you like. She also gives you a 50% off of another project, which she calls that sloop block project, which is super cute there. So check that out below. Okay, so now when we come back, I promise we are assembling blocks. We finally made it to assembling the blocks in various methods. So, but let's check in with Laurie before we do this. It's a great time for a break. So, Laurie, how's it going over there in the chat?
Well, real well. And we have very enthusiastic viewers about Monster Block Maker.
Oh, good.
You and I both love that Monster Block Maker.
I do. It's so easy. And I do, I will give a tip too, Laurie. So, you saw how PJ, put all of the double-sided tape, and that's what holds it to the back of your hoop. So I definitely recommend getting like a second 8x8 hoop so that you can just leave the Monster Block Maker attached to it. And I recommend the sticky hoop. It doesn't have the magnet, and you don't use the magnet with the Monster Block Maker. And just have a sticky hoop, 8x8, and then you can have it just kind of stick to that and just switch it out, and that can be your Monster Block Maker hoop. So
right, I agree, because that sticky hoop sits flatter on the machine when you're working on it.
Yeah, it does.
So
yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. All right. So that 12-inch block that you did.
Yeah.
You didn't piece that in one hooping though, right?
No, that was pieced on the sewing machine. So I was trying to show different blocks, because I know not everybody wants to piece their blocks on the embroidery machine. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that are avid quilters and piecers, and the piecing part is maybe something that you love to do on your sewing machine. So the 12x12 block, I pieced that on my sewing machine because I wanted to show that you could do a quilt as you go method, and this is how you would quilt a block that was pieced on your hoop. So pieced on your sewing machine. So I would either put it in my hoop like I did with all the extra batting and backing, or if it is smaller than 12x12, but you pieced it on your machine, then the Monster Block Maker would be good if you're using a block that is fits one of those sizes for the Monster Block Maker. But no, that block was pieced on my sewing machine. I was just trying to show that not only could you do this with blocks that are pieced in the hoop, but you can do that with your blocks that you pieced on your sewing machine.
Well, and I have found that you can also do like hybrid piecing. So like the hard ones, like those tiny square in a squares that you want to finish at 3.5 inches square. But then they're going to be put with like regular 3.5 inch blocks. So it's like, do the hard ones. Or like if you are phobic to flying geese blocks. That's another really good one to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And flying geese make great borders. We love doing that. And so you could piece a flying geese border as long as your hoop, and then you're only joining those sections outside of the hoop. And I've got a hoop that is 16 inches long, so I can do a pretty long piece and put 2 strips side by side and then just join them together with my sewing machine. So really good. I like that, Laura. You said hybrid. I like that. That's a really great term to describe that.
So do the hard, let the machine do the hard part, then you do the easy part.
Love it.
So anyway, I think that's all the questions that we have right now.
Sounds great. All right. Well, let's get back to it. Thank you, Laurie. Okay, so let's talk about joining those blocks. So since we just left off from the Monster Block Maker, I'm going to head over and show you a couple of designs. So that design collection also, or that item, sorry, it comes with 10, I think, different quilting designs that you can use. And this is 2 of them, and this is one of them here. this little like Mexican tile scene. And these were done with the Monster Block Maker. And I'll flip over so you can see the back. You can really see the quilting design. So this is the backing and the batting. Another thing I love about the Monster Block Maker, and I know Laurie can speak to this, there's no batting in my seams. Okay, so because the instructions have you cut the batting for the opening, then when you piece your block together, there's no batting in the seams, which makes it really nice joining them together. So you can join your blocks. Here's a couple of ways. You can join them right sides together and stitch your seam allowance here. And so then you've got your block where it's, no sashing or anything on the front. Or you can join them wrong sides together. And then whenever you open that up, you press your seam open and you've got this on the front of your blocks. And then you could just cover that with sashing or ribbon. And I'll show you that here in a second. So here's an example, but this is just white on white, but look how great the back looks. So it's really hard to tell the back from the front when you're quilting on your embroidery machine. We get that question a lot. So I always like to show that the back really does look great, on those designs. Now, in this example here, I joined right sides together and it makes this like Mexican tile scene here. And so it's the back of my quilt that has the exposed seam. Okay, so here's what you're going to do. Use a bias tape maker, or you can just cut your fabric and then fold in to the center to make strips of fabric to cover. Now, when I put this down so that it stays in place, I like to use a little strip of fusible web. We have our Fuse Me, which is down in our shopping cart. It's a very lightweight fusible web. So I apply that. And then when I iron this on, it's going to hold this in place so that I can stitch it. So, and you can see my edges are not down yet. Okay, so to stitch those down, you can hand stitch, to make sure it doesn't go through the front. But here's a tip from PJ Wong, and the instructions for this are in her Monster Block Maker, but I'm going to tell you too. So you can use your blind hem foot to stitch this down. So what you're going to do, when you do a blind hem, it's all about the fold, right? And boy, I should have chose something that wasn't black on black. And so, but you're going to fold this where you're stitching on, actually I've got this the wrong way. So you're going to fold it like this so that when you're stitching on here, it is grabbing the bias tape here, but it's not going to grab just a little bit of your batting and your backing. And that's a way that blind hem, when we stitch that blind hem, it just comes over and it takes a little bitty stitch on our fabric every so often. And so then you'll be able to not see that on the front. And I've got a finished example here that's not in black, which was smarter. Okay, so look at my front here. So I did right sides together of this block here, and this was applique and quilting all done in the hoop, but then my sashing on the back here. So now if I raise this up, you can kind of see it looks like it looks like a zigzag, but it is was my blind hem stitch. You can use a zigzag too, but it does not go through the front. It just takes a little bit out of the fabric when you're stitching. You're stitching on here, and every now and then it comes over and grabs this. But because you have it folded, it's usually just stitching through the backing and the batting, and you don't see those stitch marks on the front. So isn't that cool? So that is one way that you can do that sashing, but joining your blocks together like that. So now here's another very easy way. Look at this. So take your blocks and butt them up point to point, and do a decorative stitch. Do you want to know what to do all those decorative stitches on your sewing machine? That's a really good example. Choose one that kind of has a satin texture to it, like this, where it's really got good coverage, and it makes a beautiful decorative border. And these are just butted up next to one another. Now, when you put them next to one another, you want them to stay there. So use a little strip of your water-soluble stabilizer that is a wash away. You guys know this stabilizer. It's adhesive and it rinses away. You can join those blocks and use that to hold them together. Stitch your decorative stitch, and then when you wash that, that's going to disappear. Okay. So that's a really easy way to join your blocks too. And then you can see I just did my serger edge because this was just a little sample. And then on the back, you can see now on these examples here, you can see this one, this very busy fabric. You can hardly even see the stitching. You can actually hardly see it in any of them. When you have a solid stitch or solid fabric, it really does show your stitching. But if you really ever want to hide the back, then a busy printed fabric is the way to do that. But I will tell you that the back of your quilting, it doesn't look bad. So just depends on the design. If your design has a lot of tie-offs, just be careful of that. But if you have a really nice digitized quilting design, it's going to look as good on the back as it does on the front. Okay, so that's taking 2 blocks and just butting them right up together. Now, what about this? Take a look at this. Just like that little yoga mat carrier that we saw earlier, these blocks were stitched on a piece of fabric, batting, and stabilizer. So if you look there, and you can see I even did this with my monster block maker, and I know that because there's no seam, no batting in my seam. Now, you could do this the regular way and you would have batting, you could trim it out. But to me, it just makes it lay like really nice and flat when I don't have that extra bulk. Now, what I did here was I stitched these 4 blocks. I put them right sides together, just like we talked about earlier. So I've got my blocks and I did right sides together and I stitched, okay? And I made my 4 patch here. And then I just put this down on top of a piece of backing and stitched in the ditch, and it is adhering my backing to my quilt. So then I'm hiding all of those the back pieces that you see here. So this one was again batting, and that's the light no-show cutaway stabilizer that's on the back of that. Okay, so that's another example of what you can do. And then I have another example of sashing. This is my favorite sashing to do here. So this is called reversible sashing. And to me, I love the look that you get. This is the one where you can put the same color and you don't notice it. But this sashing is really easy to do. You'll cut your strips 2 inches wide, and then you're going to sew your front strip to one block with a back strip. So here I've got my backing, or my back sashing is green and my front sashing is pink. Okay. And so you're going to make a sandwich with one backing sashing and one front sashing and the block in between. Okay. And now this one, I've got batting and everything in the seam, which I would want because it's going to fill in the gap between the two. Okay. So 2-inch strip, I stitch a 1/2 inch seam. Look at how wide my seam is. 1/2 inch seam there. Okay. And then you're going to stitch the other block to just the front sashing, the other half of the sashing, 1/2 inch seam. Okay. And if you do that, when you open up your blocks, that 1/2 inch fills in that space. So you're not going to have any divots in your quilt. So now it's all the same thickness because my batting was in the seam in this case. And then now I just use a piece of our fusible web and I'm just going to fold that over and then fuse that down. And then again, I can hand stitch that. You can try that blind hem method where you're really folding, off to the side like that as you're stitching. And so just that blind hem kind of coming on, grabbing every so often. Or you can also stitch in the ditch from the front. So when you pull this over, fusing it down, make sure you cover your seam over here. And then when you come to the front, you could always stitch in the ditch to tack that down, because I know not everybody likes to do that hand sewing, right? So what do you think your favorite method might be? So we've got the sashing, the reversible sashing. You can put your blocks together and then attach your batting or your backing, sorry, all as one piece. You can use the decorative stitches on your sewing machine, join those blocks together. Or you can do where you just have sashing on the front or the back. Or what about this? What about if you join your blocks together, wrong sides together, stitch, when you open that up, snip that seam, and you'll get like a raggy kind of quilt look. Take a look at this. So here where I've joined these two rows, I just snipped that seam allowance there to make that raggy kind of effect. And if you don't like that, you certainly could cover it not just with fabric. You could do fabric that you have put, through your bias maker, tape maker, or fold it. You could also just do a grosgrain ribbon to make that border if you want. So lots of different options for making your quilt joins for sure. So, and the stipples, all of the stipples that we have in the shopping cart, those are Quilt As You Go projects. Okay. They give you the instructions, they give you the designs, and even the instructions for that reversible sashing that I just talked about, the sewing those blocks together. Now, our stipple collections, we have all different types, flowers, animals, holiday options. It's really your choice. They all work in a similar fashion. And you don't have to necessarily make a quilt with them. You could make a wall hanging. You could make smaller projects, placemats, an individual block to hang in an entryway with maybe some embroidery. Anything that you want, you can put as many as the blocks together or as few of the blocks together as you want. Now, all of the options that we have are in the shopping cart below. Again, there's lots of different options to choose from. Each one, again, is a Quilt As You Go project with instructions and the design collection. So they're really fun. We've got holiday ones, flowers, cute. I love the sprinkle one. The little ice cream and the candies are perfect for the summer. Butterflies, the cats, the dogs, seashells, as well as the border collection, which is really a unique collection. But the process of this is a totally different way of making a block. This doesn't have any piecing. It has no pieced block. It's a solid piece of fabric that you will hoop with your batting and your backing. And when you stitch the first color, it is a stippling stitch, most of them, that will put your 3 layers together. It'll quilt your 3 layers. And then you do the applique pieces. The applique are all raw edge applique. So you can layer up your pieces and then trim all at one time once you take it out of the hoop. So you don't have to trim after each segment because it's raw edge applique. And it's raw edge because the run stitch goes through all 3 layers so that the back of the quilt doesn't have, you don't see satin stitches or fill stitches. So, and then that sashing technique, here are images because sometimes it's good to see something more than once to really understand how it's working. So the reversible sashing, here it is in an image form so you can see the steps. So you're going to cut those 2-inch strips, one for the front, one for the back, and you've got 2 blocks. You're going to sandwich a front and a back piece of sashing over your one block. Okay. And then after you do that, you will open up the front piece and you will stitch right sides together your next block to it. And so again, you can see that here. I think that gives a little bit better visual since the blocks were separate. That might help you understand a little bit more. And then for the back, again, you're going to press it under a 1/2 inch. Remember, we're using a 1/2 inch seam in these examples. And then you can fold that over and then you can top stitch on the front in the ditch, stitch in the ditch, or you can hand stitch on the back if you'd like. So, and again, match your sashing if you want, or use bold color variations to give you a completely different look. Now, any Quilt As You Go project. These are some examples of things that you can do, but these were specifically made with the stipple block, so you don't have to necessarily make a quilt. Like I said, this throw pillow example, that is 3 blocks joined together for a nice little bench pillow. This cute little holiday block. Also, those pillows, the stipple design was used without the applique design was used without the quilting on those pillows. So it's very versatile design collections that you can create all kinds of projects, but the instructions do give you the projects to make the quilt. So isn't that cool? What do you guys think? Now, once you start adding all your blocks together, this was the product that Pam mentioned called the Weightless Quilter Tabletop. The Weightless Quilter Tabletop is a helping hand when you start joining your quilt blocks together and they're getting a little too long to manage. So it clamps to your table and it will hold your quilt as it's getting larger and larger to keep the weight off of your embroidery machine. So as your quilt gets larger and your embroidery machine is, or even your sewing machine as you're pushing it around yourself, but it really just kind of takes the weight off of everything so that as the machine is doing what it needs to do, or if you're moving it to stitch your blocks together, that it makes it easier for you. So the Weightless Quilter Tabletop, again, it clamps to your table and you can use it with pretty much any table. I think it will open up to almost 2 inches in width for the thickness. So that is makes it really versatile. But it's just a great little tool for extra helping hands. So make sure you take advantage of that while it's on special. Now, the Mylar that we talked about earlier, if you haven't done Mylar, we've got some nice design collections that you can incorporate. And you can also use those designs to make your Quilt As You Go projects. We were just trying to bring in other options for beautiful quilt ideas for you. But when you're quilting with your embroidery machine, whether it's Quilt As You Go or Edge to Edge, or maybe you're doing custom quilting, you can use any thread that will run in your embroidery machine. Our metallic thread is a great option. It runs smoothly. You can wind a matching bobbin to make sure the back of your quilt matches the front. We have lots of options for you to get some Kingstar metallic on specials. We've got sets of 4, our quartets grouped together by season, but that's a great way to either restock or get started with Kingstar metallic. So check that out below. Also, quilting with variegated thread. Oh my gosh, do I love quilting with variegated thread. I love how the run stitch looks so cool going through that run stitch. So that's another great option. Variegated thread changes color throughout the spool. This is still embroidery thread. It's a 40 weight polyester embroidery thread and it's great for your embroidery projects, but I also love it for sewing and quilting. It just adds beautiful color. And a really awesome way to get some variegated thread are in our color place sets. This is a thread kit that has 1 variegated spool and the 4 colors that coordinate or match that thread spool. So you're getting solid colors that are great for the back of your quilt, and you can do the variegated on top, and you know one of those colors is going to be the perfect match to your variegated thread. And then the Mylar embroidery design. So we've teamed with Patricia Gates of Purely Gates Designs, and she has created some bundles for you guys and shared those with us so that you can take advantage of those specials. So before I tell you this, though, we do have a special message from Patricia Gates. So let's hear this video message from Patricia Gates of Purely Gates Designs.
I'm Patricia from Purely Gates Embroidery, the home of Mylar embroidery. Our machine embroidery designs are created to magically sparkle, and that sparkle adds depth and dimension to the designs, and all this without using any specialty threads. Only portions of each design are created to sparkle, so to know when to place the Mylar over the design in the sequence of stitching, consult the color change chart we provide with each collection. With 180 different collections available, you won't run out of ideas or inspiration. The potential projects you can create from each collection is endless. We want your experience with machine embroidery to be fun and creative, and this is where our collaboration with Dime is a perfect match. Our color change charts included with each collection use Dime's exquisite thread color numbers. In addition to being a veteran user of Dime's thread and stabilizers, I use the print and stick target paper, the sticky hoop poly patch twill, and I love how the snap hoop monster makes quilting on an embroidery machine easy. Purely Gates Embroidery and Dime products work so well together. Dime is the brand I use for all of my embroidery projects. Thank you.
I love that message from Patricia. So, and I agree. I do love how she has all of our exquisite thread listed for the colors, because I know exactly what color she used in her beautiful designs. So her Mylar embroidery designs are so special. She is fantastic at creating Mylar designs. Like I said, that's what I have known her for years, and you might too. And so here are some of the collections that we have to share with you. The Mylar Swirly Sewing Collection are cute little sewing notions, and add that touch of Mylar for a little sparkle. There are 10 designs, and you only need a 5x7 hoop for these. So check that out below. They are on special. And again, you can use your 10% off disc code if you reach that threshold. Nothing is excluded. Now look at some of the Quilt As You Go projects. I love the little stabilizer holder, the individual blocks, but these designs can be stitched on things other than quilting. Like you can see the t-shirt there. I love that example, but look at the sparkle, right? Now, you saw some of the examples that I used from the chef's collection of what I created in our Quilt As You Go projects. This fun collection includes chefs and chefs 2, which are the male chefs, and then the chefs 2 are the females. And because you're making the chefs in embroidery, we've included our skin tone embroidery thread collection. These are the colors that perfectly match a variety of different skin tones. And we've also included the Mylar you'll need to stitch out these designs. So the chefs that's included in here are cute little chef designs, but there are also some sayings, which I absolutely love, and those cute little utensils. And she even has matching quilting designs. In this collection, there are 60 different designs in various sizes, hoops, cooking phrases, chefs. I mean, it's just really adorable. And look at some of these things here. I love that apron, really a cute example for using that collection. The chefs too are the females. Again, a cute little whimsical chefs with fun phrases, and also matching quilting designs and borders. So 70 designs in this collection. And look at some of the cute things there. Look at that Quilt As You Go hanger. That banner there is joined with just fabric, like binding strips there. So isn't that cool? Just little sashing strips. It also includes the skin tone assortment that you're going to get, because you'll need that to stitch the chefs in this collection and the Mylar. So this bundle from Patricia Gates is called the Make It. So because that's what our chefs do, they make us some really good food. So Make It from Purely Gates bundle, and that is down below. So make sure you check that out. Also, we have the Say It with Purely Gates bundle. This includes the monogram floral collection that you saw on my little hanging in the beginning. The Mylar is under all of the flowers on these, so it adds beautiful sparkle. There's a run stitch background that's a floral pattern that makes the letter itself, and I love using the variegated thread with that. It just makes a beautiful look. So this comes with a color play kit of your choice that you can choose whichever, and the Mylar that you'll need to stitch those. It has the Mylar floral monograms, which are the uppercase. There are all the letters in uppercase and some matching florals. And then you also get the Mylar floral monogram too, which are all the lowercase letters and coordinating florals as well. So just some nice collections to really enhance your Quilt As You Go projects, or of course you can use them without Quilt As You Go if you like. So make sure whenever you choose your bundle, the Say It bundle, you do need to select which color play kit you want. So choose from the drop down list, and you'll have a huge selection of color options. So make sure you select that below to get the right color play set that you want. So, okay, I'm 1 minute over, so I will stop right there. And but let's make time for one last Q&A. So, Laurie, any last questions or comments that we need to address?
Well, everybody's really been enjoying the creativity, but one quick question. On the stipple projects, do you have to use fabric, or can you use other stuff?
So for the applique?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the applique, you could use whatever you'd like. If you want to use like HTV, you can certainly do that as well. The animals would look really cute in faux fur, which is what I did on my little bag here, Laurie. This is like a printed kind of like
Oh
fuzzy
yeah.
fabric that was perfect for the cats.
That's
So you can
adorable.
use that as well. So yeah, it's a regular embroidery applique. It's just run stitch. So it is raw edge, but you certainly can use anything that you would use a normal applique. So really good question.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's pretty much everything we have. We had a great group today, and many, many thanks to everybody.
Well, and I appreciate you being over there, Lori. I certainly couldn't have done it without you. But none of us would be here if it weren't for our friend Pam at Just So Happy. So a big shout out to Just So Happy for hosting our event today and sharing all of their fans and followers with us for the last 90 minutes. So until we have another event with Just So Happy and Dime, we'll say bye for now. And thank you all for coming.